In the humid twilight of November 18th, 1972, Hong Kong pulsed like a living dragon awakening under a blanket of salty harbor mist. Victoria Harbor shimmered with the reflections of junks and modern freighters, their lights cutting through the gathering dusk like blades through silk. The city was a crucible of cultures, British colonial order clashing with ancient Chinese resilience, Japanese discipline seeping in through trade winds, and the raw energy of a post-war boom transforming narrow streets into arteries of ambition. This was an era when martial arts weren't mere hobbies. They were philosophies wrapped in calloused fists, symbols of national pride amid shifting global powers. Bruce Lee's Fist of Fury had just electrified screens worldwide, igniting a firestorm of interest in Eastern combat traditions. Yet beneath the silver screen glamour lay the gritty underbelly of dojos where sweat, blood, and unyielding will forged unbreakable spirits. EFD-30C. The air inside and around Victoria Sports Hall carried the thick scent of incense from nearby temples, mingling with street vendors' sizzling walks, and the faint metallic tang of polished hardwood floors. Over 4,000 souls had crammed into the venue for what promoters billed as the International Masters Demonstration, a showcase of styles from across Asia. No blood sport prizes, no official bouts, just masters displaying the poetry and power of their arts. But the crowd's hunger ran deeper. They sought more than demonstrations. They craved validation, a glimpse into the soul of warriors who could redefine what it meant to be human in an age of rapid modernization. At the center of this electric anticipation stood a figure who embodied the old world's ferocity, Yuki Tanaka, the 28-year-old undefeated force from Osaka. Born into the rigid hierarchies of post-war Japan, Yuki had been tempered in one of Kyokushin Karate's most merciless training halls. Picture a young girl, barely tall enough to reach the heavy bags, enduring endless sessions of full-contact sparring under instructors who viewed pain as the ultimate teacher. Kyokushin wasn't about points or flair. It was the way of ultimate truth where bare-knuckle clashes tested the limits of human endurance. Yuki's body bore the invisible map of those battles. Scar tissue beneath her GI, calluses on knuckles that could shatter pine boards without flinching. Her record was legendary in underground circles, 61 bouts, 61 decisive triumphs, 54 of them ending in knockouts that left opponents questioning their life's path. National titles, Asian crowns, an international grand championship, each victory not just a win, but a psychological demolition. Opponents entered the ring with bravado, chests puffed under the weight of their own egos. They left shattered, not always physically, but in spirit. Their confidence eroded like sandcastles before a typhoon. The Japanese press dubbed her the Iron Orchid, a moniker she despised with quiet fury. Orchids evoked fragility, petals wilting under pressure. Yuki was forged steel, her mind a fortress where mercy was a foreign concept and respect was extracted through dominance. In her psyche, fear wasn't an enemy to conquer. It was the sharpest blade in her arsenal. She wielded it masterfully, staring down challengers until their resolve crumbled before the first blow. As the evening deepened, Yuki observed, from a shadowed doorway backstage, her arms crossed over a crisp white ji that hugged her athletic frame like armor. Her dark eyes, sharp as obsidian, scanned the arena with predatory focus. The roar of the crowd filtered through like distant thunder. She had come not for spectacle, but to affirm the old ways, the discipline of endless katas, the bone-rattling impact of honest combat, the hierarchical reverence for tradition. To her, the rising tide of movie stars and flashy innovators threatened to dilute the purity of martial arts into mere entertainment. Her students hovered nearby, young men and women with bowed heads, absorbing her every word as gospel. Meanwhile, outside the hall, another legend navigated a different kind of storm. Bruce Lee, the compact whirlwind of philosophy and motion, moved through throngs of admirers with the effortless grace of a man who had already transcended fame. At 32, he was the bridge between East and West, born in San Francisco's Chinatown, raised in Hong Kong, honed in the Hollywood Hills. His recent films had catapulted him into global icon status, yet Bruce remained a seeker at heart. Dressed in a simple black kung fu uniform, his presence radiated quiet intensity rather than bombast. Fans pressed close, wide-eyed children reaching for a touch, eager photographers snapping frames, elders nodding in quiet approval. He greeted them all with genuine warmth, his smile disarming, his eyes reflecting a depth that suggested he saw beyond the surface chaos. Bruce's mind that night swirled with visions of the future. He envisioned martial arts evolving beyond rigid styles into a fluid expression of human potential. Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist, where efficiency trumped tradition for tradition's sake. Speed, timing, directness, these were his creed. No interest in pointless brawls, he sought to illuminate paths for the next generation. Yet, as he bowed and signed autographs, a subtle undercurrent of tension hummed in the air. Whispers of the formidable Japanese champion had reached him, but Bruce dismissed provocation. His path was one of unity, not conquest. Inside, the demonstrations unfolded like chapters in an epic saga. Wooden boards splintered under focused strikes. Concrete yielded to elbows driven with years of conditioned power. Bricks exploded in clouds of dust. Each master brought their cultural essence. The explosive snap of taekwondo high kicks, the grappling clinches of judo, the devastating elbows and knees of Muay Thai. The crowd's applause thundered, a collective release of pent-up energy in a city still healing from colonial shadows and global uncertainties. But all eyes waited for the marquee name. When Bruce's introduction boomed over the loudspeakers, the hall ignited. He strode onto the polished mat with unhurried poise, the lights casting long shadows that accentuated his chiseled physique. A deep bow to every instructor present, including Yuki across the way. She met his gesture with stony silence, her posture a wall of defiance. Bruce noted it, his expression unchanging, a flicker of understanding perhaps, for the pride that guarded wounded spirits. His demonstration was a masterclass in restraint and revelation. Speaking softly yet commandingly into the microphone, he dissected the essence of combat. Speed, untethered from control, breeds recklessness. Raw power without intent scatters like leaves in wind. Then came the iconic 1-inch punch. A burly volunteer stepped forward, twice Bruce's mass. With a barely perceptible shift of his hips and a focused exhalation, Bruce connected. The man rocketed backward, the impact's echo reverberating like a cannon shot. The arena exploded in pandemonium, standing ovations, cheers that shook the rafters. The echo of applause still hung heavy as Yuki Tanaka commandeered the floor, microphone in hand, her stride purposeful and unyielding. The arena's energy pivoted instantly, a collective intake of breath creating a vacuum of suspense. In the dim glow of overhead lights filtering through cigarette haze, common in those pre-smoking band days, the Japanese champion's silhouette projected an aura of unassailable authority. Her face, framed by short-cropped hair damp with the hall's humidity, betrayed no nervousness, only a simmering conviction born from years of crushing doubts in the dojo. To understand Yuki's psychology was to peer into the soul of a survivor. Raised in Osaka's unforgiving training regimens, where senior students administered corrective beatings to instill humility through hardship, she had learned early that vulnerability invited destruction. Her victories weren't celebrations, they were rituals of erasure, wiping away the illusions of lesser fighters. In her mind, the world divided neatly, the strong who imposed their will, and the weak who clung to excuses. Bruce Lee's cinematic rise represented the latter, a dilution of martial purity into accessible fantasy for the masses. She saw in him not a peer, but a symbol of encroaching superficiality. Is this what captivates the world now? Her voice cut through the silence, laced with disdain that carried the weight of cultural orthodoxy. The crowd, a mosaic of Hong Kong locals, expats, journalists, and martial enthusiasts, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Bruce turned, his features composed like still water reflecting moonlight. He responded with measured grace, acknowledging her viewpoint without defensiveness. But Yuki pressed, her words painting him as a showman peddling illusions rather than forging true warriors. The confrontation escalated with cinematic precision. Yuki's challenge rang out clear and provocative, a direct invitation to spar. Bruce demurred, emphasizing knowledge-sharing over violence, his philosophy rooted in the idea that true mastery transcended ego clashes. This calm only fueled her fire. In Yuki's internal landscape, his refusal registered as evasion, a crack in the facade she longed to exploit. She craved the validation of breaking a legend publicly, proving that discipline trumped flair. Psychological layers deepened with every exchange. Bruce's serenity masked a profound strategic mind. He had already begun cataloging her micro-expressions, posture shifts, and emotional tells from afar. For him, this wasn't about dominance, but growth, conflict as a mirror for self-reflection. Yuki, conversely, felt the sting of his equanimity like salt in an old wound. Her anger wasn't mere rage, it was a defense mechanism, shielding a deep-seated fear that the world was changing faster than her traditional anchors could hold. The audience became characters in this drama, some cheering the underdog challenge, others sensing the gravity of clashing ideologies. Journalists scribbled furiously, cameras flashed like lightning. Bruce, after a pregnant pause filled with the arena's buzzing tension, finally shed his outer jacket with deliberate care, folding it as one might a cherished scroll. His 7 words, "I hope you're ready to learn as well," landed like a gauntlet thrown in slow motion, silencing the hall. The referee's interventions added procedural gravity, outlining rules for a demonstration only, yet the air crackled with the knowledge that lines would blur. Yuki's students watched with rapt intensity, their sensei's unbowed head during the formal bow speaking volumes of her unyielding spirit. Bruce's deep, respectful bow contrasted sharply, highlighting themes of cultural collision, Eastern hierarchy versus a more egalitarian, adaptive approach. Historical atmosphere infused every moment. 1972, Hong Kong teetered on the cusp of transformation. Pre-handover anxieties, economic miracles fueled by refugee ingenuity, a youth culture devouring Western films while clinging to ancestral rites. Martial arts halls echoed with the sounds of training, the sharp kiais of practitioners, the thud of pads, the philosophical debates over tea. This event symbolized a crossroads. Would the future honor rigid lineages or embrace hybrid innovation? Yuki represented the former's bulwark, Bruce its evolutionary spark. Barefoot on the worn canvas mat, Bruce and Yuki circled in a ritual as old as conflict itself. The lights overhead cast elongated shadows that danced with their movements, the arena's wooden beams groaning faintly under the weight of expectant silence. No dramatic music swelled, instead, the raw symphony of breathing, foot shuffles, and distant crowd murmurs painted the scene. Yuki launched first, a whirlwind of Kyokushin precision, a spinning roundhouse kick slicing the air with lethal intent, her leg a blurred arc powered by hips forged in thousands of repetitions. Bruce evaded not with frantic haste but elegant economy, leaning just enough for the kick to whisper past his face. The miss sent ripples through the spectators, whispers spreading like wildfire. "Did you see that?" Yuki followed with a barrage, front kicks, back fists, low sweeps, reverse punches, each a testament to her training's brutality. Yet Bruce flowed around them, his body a study in adaptive geometry. He wasn't dodging to survive, he was absorbing data. Every twitch of her shoulder, every exhalation pattern, every weight transfer revealed her rhythm, her habits, the psychological tells of a fighter who had rarely encountered true resistance. Yuki's mind raced with growing frustration. Opponents typically crumbled under her onslaught, their fear manifesting in telegraphing panic. Here, Bruce's relaxed curiosity unnerved her. It challenged her core belief that dominance required immediate subjugation. Internally, she grappled with the unfamiliar, respect mixed with irritation, a seed of doubt planted in fertile soil of pride. Sweat began to bead on her brow as minutes ticked by. 5, 6, her attacks lengthening, power undiminished, but precision fraying at the edges from expended energy. The old kung fu master in the front row leaned in, murmuring insights to his companion. Patience as the ultimate weapon, observation as silent conquest. Bruce's thigh absorbed a solid sidekick, the impact resounding like a drumbeat. Pain flickered across his features momentarily, but he nodded acknowledgement. Good technique, further disarming her aggression with unexpected sportsmanship. This psychological warfare cut deeper than physical blows. Yuki's anger boiled, her combinations turning raw and emotionally charged, revealing cracks in the armor of her invincibility. Visuals unfolded in hyper-detailed slow motion, the flex of Yuki's quadriceps as she pivoted, the micro-adjustments in Bruce's stance mirroring Wing Chun roots blended with broader insights. The crowd's psychology shifted palpably, from bloodlust to awe. They witnessed not brute force, but intellectual mastery, a living embodiment of Bruce's ethos that true fighting transcended violence. Yuki backed away briefly, chest heaving, her mind a tempest of recalibration. Why wouldn't he strike? What game was this? Bruce's calm voice pierced the tension, audible only to her. Observations on fighting inner demons over external foes. These words landed like precision strikes to the ego, forcing Yuki to confront the mirror he held up. Her greatest battles had always been internal, though she had externalized them through conquests. The historical weight pressed in, Kyokushin's emphasis on Osu, persevering spirit, now tested against a philosophy prioritizing efficiency and self-knowledge. Tension coiled like a spring as Yuki dropped into her signature stance, center of gravity low, every line of her body signaling finality. This was the posture that had felled champions, the harbinger of knockout finishes where her full arsenal converged in devastating synergy. Her students rose instinctively, recognizing the prelude to victory. Bruce's expression sharpened, his focus laser-like as he internalized the final pieces of her puzzle. She exploded forward in a symphony of violence, spinning hook kick, reverse punch, jumping knee, all in under 2 heartbeats. Bruce advanced instead of retreating, closing the sacred distance she deemed impenetrable. Her strikes met void, he had anticipated, intercepted the flow. Too much commitment, he murmured, the words a scalpel to her technique's flaws. Desperation crept into Yuki's assaults, emotion overriding the clinical precision that defined her. Each miss eroded her aura, fatigue etching lines on her determined face. The arena held its breath as Bruce finally engaged minimally, redirecting a wrist with surgical gentleness, unbalancing her without retaliation. She stumbled, recovered, confusion warring with fury in her eyes. His refusal to capitalize spoke volumes. Victory wasn't the prize, insight was. When she pressed one final all-or-nothing charge, Bruce timed perfection. His fist halted inches from her chest, a phantom blow that conveyed finality without contact. Yuki froze, the realization crashing like waves on Victoria Harbor's shores. In those suspended seconds, her psychological fortress trembled. Pride, once her shield, now exposed as vulnerability. The crowd's roars for a finish met Bruce's disappointed gaze as he addressed them, distinguishing martial arts essence from vengeful spectacle. His words resonated profoundly in 1972's context, a call for unity amid division. In the aftermath's profound hush, where the very atmosphere of Victoria Sports Hall seemed to thicken with unspoken revelation on that humid November 18th, 1972 evening, Bruce Lee extended a hand, not in the sharp, triumphant gesture of a conqueror claiming his spoils, but in the quiet, open offering of kinship between two souls who had just navigated the invisible currents of combat and consciousness. The arena, still heavy with the lingering echoes of 4,000 held breaths, felt transformed from a venue of spectacle into a sacred chamber of introspection. Overhead lights, once harsh and interrogative, now cast a softer, almost reverent glow across the canvas mat, highlighting the faint scuff marks left by their barefoot movements, traces of a dance that had been equal parts evasion, revelation, and profound teaching. The air carried the dense, layered sense of the night, salt-kissed harbor breeze sneaking through cracked windows, the earthy tang of polished wood floors worn by decades of demonstrations, and the sharp, human notes of sweat and adrenaline that clung to both fighters like invisible badges of their shared ordeal. Bruce's touch, when it came, was featherlight yet profoundly affirming as he steadied Yuki Tanaka's stance. His fingers brushed her shoulder with the precision of a master calligrapher guiding a final stroke, firm enough to restore balance, gentle enough to convey no threat, only support. In that single, deliberate contact, layers of lessons unfolded. The supremacy of humility over raw, unbridled strength, the quiet power found in restraint rather than release, the understanding that true mastery often reveals itself not in the landing of blows, but in the deliberate choice to withhold them. For a premium American documentary audience, this moment would be rendered in exquisite cinematic detail. Slow-motion cinematography, capturing the micro-expressions flickering across Yuki's face, the subtle relaxation in her tensed shoulders, the way her GI, damp and battle-worn, shifted under his guidance. Voiceover narration, delivered in a rich, contemplative tone by a seasoned narrator like Morgan Freeman, or a similar gravitas-filled voice, would underscore the psychological profundity. In the shadow of what could have been a devastating clash, Bruce Lee chose the path less traveled. Not domination, but elevation. Not ego, but empathy. Yuki's tears flowed freely now, tracing warm paths down her cheeks, but these were not the bitter droplets of defeat's sting or public humiliation. They represented enlightenment's release, a cathartic unburdening of the heavy armor she had carried for nearly 3 decades. Her ego, that hidden adversary long nurtured in the merciless crucibles of Kyokushin karate schools in Osaka, lay bare and exposed under the arena's lights. Born in the austere post-war landscape of Japan, where training halls demanded total submission to pain, as the ultimate teacher, Yuki had constructed her identity as an unbreakable force. The Iron Orchid nickname, whispered in Asian newspapers and dojos alike, had chafed against her spirit because it evoked fragility she refused to acknowledge. Flowers wilted. She endured. Victories, 61 in total, 54 by knockout, were not mere tallies but rituals of psychological erasure where opponents left the ring not just physically diminished, but spiritually questioning their place in the martial world. Yet here, in Hong Kong's Victoria Sports Hall, amid the cultural crossroads of British colonial remnants, Chinese resilience, and Japanese discipline, that fortress cracked open. The camera, in our imagined premium production, would intercut this live moment with richly atmospheric flashbacks. Grainy, desaturated sequences transport viewers to a frost-laced Osaka dojo at dawn. A young Yuki, barely reaching the heavy bags, absorbing full contact strikes from senior students twice her size, her small frame trembling yet unyielding under the relentless chant of Osu, persevere. We witness her rise through national championships, Asian titles, and international grand slams, each triumph carving deeper grooves into her psyche. Opponents crumpled before her combinations, their confidence shattered like brittle concrete under her elbows. But the documentary's psychological experts, interviewed in sleek, modern studios with subtle martial arts artifacts in the background, would explain the hidden cost. Yuki's undefeated record masked a profound internal isolation. Dominance became her language because vulnerability was never taught as strength. Bruce Lee's intervention flipped that script, forcing an inward gaze that no prior fight had demanded. Strength, without respect, is weakness, Bruce intoned, his voice carrying across the now silent hall with the quiet authority of a philosopher addressing disciples rather than spectators. The words, simple yet seismic, etched themselves into the collective memory of everyone present. They hung in the air like incense smoke from nearby temples, permeating minds and hearts. For the diverse crowd, Hong Kong locals navigating post-war economic booms, Japanese visitors steeped in traditional Bushido echoes, Westerners captivated by the global Bruce Lee phenomenon, the phrase distilled the evening's essence. It was 1972, a pivotal year of global flux. Nixon's groundbreaking China visit thawing diplomatic ice, the Munich Olympics underscoring both human achievement and tragedy, and Hong Kong itself a vibrant entrepot where East met West in chaotic harmony. Martial arts, once cloistered in hidden schools, were exploding into popular culture through Bruce's films like Enter the Dragon, challenging stereotypes while inviting deeper philosophical inquiry. Bruce's message cut through the era's tensions, tradition versus modernity, rigid styles versus fluid integration, with piercing clarity. The deepest bow followed, a gesture transcending the binary of competition and symbolizing mutual growth in its purest form. Yuki, the Iron Orchid whose mere presence had intimidated arenas across Asia, lowered her head slowly, deliberately, her forehead dipping toward the mat in a bow of unprecedented depth and sincerity. Arms extended, posture flawless yet vulnerable, she held the position for what felt like an eternity, seconds stretching into profound symbolism. This was no obligatory protocol demanded by referees or tradition. It emerged from the heart, a surrender not to defeat, but to wisdom. Bruce mirrored it immediately, matching the depth and duration with equal reverence. Their forms aligned under the lights, two silhouettes against the vastness of the hall, representing the collision and eventual harmony of worlds. Kyokushin's full contact ferocity meeting Jeet Kune Do's adaptive efficiency. In the documentary script, this sequence unfolds with sweeping crane shots, pulling back to reveal the entire audience, rising in spontaneous, respectful silence before erupting into shared reverence, not partisan cheers for a victor, but a collective catharsis acknowledging something greater than any single fighter. This fictional yet symbolic clash captured the era's spirit with vivid, multifaceted intensity. Tradition meeting innovation on equal footing, ego yielding to evolution like autumn leaves surrendering to winter's renewal. For premium US audiences reflecting on legacy in today's fragmented world, amid digital echo chambers, cultural polarization, and quests for authentic self-improvement, the scene underscores timeless truths. Martial arts transcend physical combat. They serve as vehicles for human betterment, where the greatest victories are those that reshape souls rather than bruise bodies. Bruce Lee's influence, though his real-life story ended tragically young, endured and inspired countless hybrids worldwide. Mixed martial arts organizations, fitness philosophies blending Eastern mindfulness with Western science, and personal development movements all trace threads back to his vision of efficiency, self-knowledge, and respect. Yuki's arc, in this narrative, hinted at redemption through deep reflection. The Iron Orchid, once defined by destruction, began blooming with newfound depth. Her future teachings perhaps incorporating breathing exercises, philosophical dialogues, and emphasis on inner humility alongside physical rigor. Reporters, notebooks, and cameras in frenzy captured the moment for front-page Asian headlines that would ripple through dojos from Tokyo to Bangkok and film sets in Hong Kong's bustling studios. Morning editions of papers like the South China Morning Post and Japanese dailies would dissect the encounter. Legendary restraint, Bruce Lee teaches where others destroy. The event's waves extended far beyond the hall. In training halls across the continent, instructors paused mid-kata to discuss the implications. Could respect elevate technique beyond brute dominance? Aspiring students, inspired by the footage that would circulate in grainy VHS era, bootlegs, and later digital restorations, questioned their own approaches. Was winning everything, or was understanding the true prize? In Hong Kong's vibrant night, as crowds dispersed into lantern-lit streets alive with the symphony of the city, rickshaw wheels clattering over cobblestones, neon signs flickering in Cantonese and English, the distant lap of waves against junks in Victoria Harbour, the lesson lingered like a cherished melody. True TV mastery lies not in overwhelming force, but in profound understanding. Respect forges paths where raw power falters and crumbles. The narrow alleys bustled with late-night dim-sum vendors and fortune-tellers, their lanterns casting warm, dancing shadows that mirrored the inner lights ignited in spectators' minds. Families walked home debating the bout, children mimicking Bruce's evasive footwork while parents pondered the deeper philosophy. Expats hailed taxis, carrying stories back to London or New York that would seed interest in cross-cultural martial exchanges. The city itself, a melting pot of resilience amid colonial transitions and economic miracles, embodied the very synthesis Bruce and Yuki had enacted on the mat. This encounter, etched indelibly in cinematic memory through reenactments, archival integrations, and expert analyses, continues to inspire quests for balance in a fragmented world. In our premium documentary production, extended sequences would delve even deeper. Psychologists discuss ego dissolution and post-traumatic growth, drawing parallels to modern therapy techniques. Historians contextualize 1972 Hong Kong, refugee influxes bringing martial knowledge, British institutions providing structure, and a youth culture hungry for icons like Bruce amid global upheavals. Martial arts masters from various styles demonstrate how the non-strike moment exemplifies timing, distance control, and emotional intelligence, principles applicable far beyond fighting rings into boardrooms, relationships, and societal dialogues. Expanding on Yuki's internal transformation, months later, in imagined yet vividly rendered scenes, she returns to her Osaka school. The once sterile dojo now incorporates seated meditation sessions between sparring rounds. Students notice the shift, a softening of commands, greater emphasis on partner respect, integration of breathing methods to manage the very anger that once fueled her dominance. Her Iron Orchid moniker evolves in her own mind from a resented label to a symbol of resilient beauty emerging stronger from adversity. Interviews with fictionalized former students reveal, Sensei taught us to fight, but after Hong Kong, she taught us to grow. Bruce's enduring legacy receives parallel depth. His films, philosophy books like Tao of Jeet Kune Do, and training methods influenced generations. Documentary talking heads, contemporary MMA champions, mindfulness coaches, cultural studies professors trace lines from this symbolic clash to today's wellness industry, where yoga studios blend with boxing gyms and leadership seminars invoke martial metaphors for emotional regulation. Visual montages dissolve the 1972 hall into modern dojos worldwide, Brooklyn warehouses, Tokyo high-rises, rural California retreats, all echoing the humility lesson. Sensory and atmospheric layers enrich every frame. The faint metallic echo of the mat under shifting weight, the subtle taste of salt on lips from exertion and harbor air, the visual poetry of sweat glistening like morning dew on Yuki's skin under dramatic key lighting. The auditory journey from tense silence to thunderous, unifying applause. Historical details grounded. 1972's geopolitical shifts, the rise of kung fu cinema challenging Hollywood norms, Hong Kong's identity as a bridge between worlds. Further psychological excavation reveals universal archetypes. Yuki as the hardened traditionalist confronting change, Bruce as the adaptive visionary modeling curiosity. Their interaction becomes metaphor for resolving conflicts in polarized times, listening over shouting, understanding over victory,